Today is Friday, December 1st. We'll tell you what's happening in Gaza now that the truce has expired and what message America's top diplomat has for Israel in this next stage of war. Also highlights from what's being called the best debate of the year between a Democrat and Republican who are not even running for the same office. Plus, what's behind a new push to replace lead drinking water pipes, what a federal court decided about the first TikTok ban in the country, and expect another rush of music fans at movie theaters. Another big pop star is making her film debut today. Those stories and even more news to know next. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. The truce that brought a week of calm to the Gaza Strip is now over. Just minutes after it expired, Israel resumed its war against Hamas from both the ground and the air. Though the Israeli government accuses militants of firing a rocket toward Israeli territory an hour before it ended. At the time, negotiators from Israel, Hamas, Qatar, Egypt, and the U.S. were still working to extend the pause in the war, hoping to allow more aid into Gaza and hoping to allow more Israeli hostages and Palestinian prisoners to be set free. Now it's not clear what's going to happen next. Even though the truce has ended, American officials say they'll keep talking about freeing the rest of the hostages. American officials are also going to be keeping a close eye on casualties in Gaza. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is back in Israel this week, and during a televised news conference there yesterday, he laid out some American requirements for the war. He said Israel must have humanitarian civilian protection plans so there aren't any more mass killings of innocent Palestinians. The Hamas-controlled Gaza Health Ministry says more than 15,000 Gazans have been confirmed killed so far, ever since the terror attack on October 7th that killed about 1,200 people in Israel. Speaking of which, there are new questions over whether that attack should have been prevented. A new report from the New York Times that cites documents, emails, and interviews says Israeli officials received a document describing Hamas's exact battle plan for October 7th more than a year before it happened. But Israeli military and intelligence officials apparently dismissed the plan, saying it would be too difficult for Hamas to carry out. Now Israel says it's making sure it could never happen again. Two of the nation's most outspoken governors, who aren't actually up against each other in any kind of election, faced off in an unusual debate last night. Florida's Republican governor, Ron DeSantis, went up against California's Democratic governor, Gavin Newsom, on Fox News. They disagreed over taxes, immigration, crime, guns, abortion, COVID-19, LGBTQ rights, book bans, and more. While Fox News host Sean Hannity interjected from time to time, trying to stop the two governors from shouting over each other. In just one of the many heated moments of the debate, Hannity asked a question about how California's population has dipped, while DeSantis blamed Newsom's policies like COVID-19 restrictions, saying they're driving people away. Separately, during an exchange on immigration policy, Newsom accused DeSantis of, quote, trying to get some news and attention so you can out-Trump Trump, to which he followed up, quote, how's that working for you, Ron? You're down 41 points in your own home state, referencing his presidential bid. But DeSantis called Newsom a slick and slippery politician and accused him of running a shadow campaign for 2024. Speaking of which, they were both asked to weigh in about the possibility of a second Biden term. DeSantis said Biden has no business running for president and claimed Biden is experiencing cognitive decline. Newsom disagreed, saying he would take Biden at 100 versus Ron DeSantis any day of the week at any age. The vast majority of the 90-minute debate was pretty tense like that, but toward the end, the two governors did share a little kindness. DeSantis praised California's natural beauty, and Newsom said he appreciated the Florida governor's military service. Today, once again, the U.S. House is holding a vote over what the future holds for one controversial congressman. Lawmakers will decide whether to expel George Santos in response to an ethics report that showed he used campaign dollars for his own personal use. Remember, that ethics report came out after criminal charges were filed and after Santos admitted to fabricating parts of his backstory in his campaign for Congress. In the months since, things have gotten uglier. Santos's colleagues debated his fate yesterday on the House floor. In one especially heated moment, GOP Congressman Max Miller called Santos a crook, and Santos shot back by calling Miller a woman beater, referring to accusations of physical abuse that Miller has said are not true. Santos's critics also pointed out that he still hasn't provided any evidence to dispute the findings of the report. Instead, yesterday, he argued that removing him before his criminal case is resolved would open the floodgates to many more frivolous expulsion efforts. If Santos is expelled today, that will make him the sixth House lawmaker to ever have been removed. Santos says if he is expelled, he plans to write a book and might someday appear on a TV show like Dancing with the Stars. The Biden administration is making a big push to remove lead from Americans' tap water. The EPA released a proposal that would have most cities replacing lead water pipes within 10 years. There are believed to be 9.2 million lead pipelines bringing water to millions of people all over the country. And the issue with that is the pipes can corrode over time, and lead exposure, even in small amounts, can have serious health effects, especially for children. But the EPA's proposal is also expected to cost billions of dollars a year over the next decade. At least some funding for the project will come from the bipartisan infrastructure law, but it's not clear where the rest of the money would come from. And the Natural Rural Water Association says American citizens will likely be paying the cost. Either way, the EPA plans to hold a public hearing on the proposals next month, and then will take public comment before deciding whether to make it official. This week, the stock market closed out its best month in more than a year, and some analysts call it one of the best months ever in the history of stocks. The tech industry has a lot to do with it, since corporate earnings have looked good for several companies. Healthcare stocks outperformed, too. There has also been a lot of positive economic data coming out this week. Like the Labor Department said the jobs market remains strong, but is showing signs of cooling. And the Commerce Department has reported inflation is cooling as expected, too. With that, investors apparently believe the Federal Reserve is finally done with its series of rate hikes, though Fed officials won't confirm that. They will meet again in just a couple of weeks, though, for their last interest rate decision of the year. We have much more news for you coming up, but first, this episode is brought to you by Uncommon Goods. Uncommon Goods is going to make your holiday shopping both meaningful and stress-free. Truly, Uncommon Goods has the most thoughtful, wide-ranging, and out-of-the-ordinary gifts that I've ever seen in one place. So I love to browse this site for gift ideas and then choose my favorites. From art and jewelry to kitchen, home, and bar, Uncommon Goods has such a variety of items that all somehow feel fun, unique, and personal. Not the same lackluster gifts you can find just anywhere. My most recent purchase, by the way, on Uncommon Goods was this beautiful stoneware bowl that I could honestly leave out on my counter for decoration. But it's really fun, too, because it's actually a popcorn bowl with a kernel sifter in it to ensure I don't accidentally eat those hard and annoying kernels. How great of a gift is that for anyone who loves curling up on the couch with popcorn and a show? And that's just one example of so many options. Plus, with every purchase you make, they give $1 to a nonprofit partner of your choice. I love that. To get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/newsworthy. That's uncommongoods.com/newsworthy to get 15% off. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods, we're all out of the ordinary. Now back to the news. It looks like the first TikTok ban in the U.S. won't be going into effect next month as planned. We're talking about the Montana law that was going to make it illegal for anyone in the state to download the app. Well, this week, a federal judge put the ban on hold. He said Montana overstepped its power with the new law, since a lot of the issue the state has with the app is over the fact that it's owned by a Chinese company. And the judge pointed out that Montana doesn't have authority over foreign affairs. Though this judge's ruling is just temporary until a trial happens sometime next year. TikTok sued Montana over the law, saying it violates the First Amendment right to free speech. So that trial could be the final say in the case. Or some analysts think this could make it all the way to the Supreme Court. So, to be continued. The CDC has a warning for Americans. Don't eat pre-cut cantaloupe if you don't know for sure that it's not part of a recall. A deadly salmonella outbreak linked to cantaloupe keeps growing. At this point, full contaminated cantaloupes have already been recalled, so they're not on store shelves anymore. But it is possible they were frozen and then cut later for things like fruit cups. Overall, at least 117 people in 34 states have been reported sick. More than half of them have had to go to the hospital, and 2 have died. The numbers are likely much higher than what's been reported, too, since it can take up to 4 weeks to determine whether a sick person is part of the outbreak. Recalled products were sent to Kroger, Sprouts, Trader Joe's, Aldi, Quick Trip, and more stores. Symptoms, including fever and stomach issues, typically set in anywhere from 6 hours to 6 days after eating the contaminated fruit. If you have any at home, the CDC says you should throw it away or return it. A rising star in college basketball who survived a life-or-death emergency is now getting back on the court. We're talking about Bronny James, the teenage son of NBA legend LeBron James. You might remember he collapsed during a workout with the University of Southern California basketball team. He suffered cardiac arrest, had to be rushed to the hospital and put in intensive care. And Bronny later had a procedure to treat a congenital heart defect. But this week, doctors cleared him to return to basketball. So his USC coaches say he'll be playing at practices next week. And his dad, LeBron James, is especially excited. He says he's already told the Lakers that he will skip their game if they play on the same day Bronny makes his USC debut. And pretty soon, he's expected to be the talk of the 2024 NBA draft. The so-called Beehive is going to be swarming movie theaters this weekend. Renaissance, a film by Beyonce, officially opens in theaters today. It's a documentary about Beyonce's record-breaking world tour featuring songs and behind-the-scenes footage. Some Beyonce fans have been especially excited since Queen Bee, as they call her, is known for being a private person who rarely grants interviews. For now, Beyonce's movie is only in theaters. Well, that's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Feel Good Friday, when we bring you one extra feel-good or positive news story before the weekend. But first, a quick break for our sponsor, CastleFlex. If you've ever done stretching or mobility work, then you probably already know how helpful it can be to your body. Well, the CastleFlex takes it to a whole other level. You may ask, why not just use a typical cheap rubber band or rope? Well, they not only can hurt your hand or snap your skin, but also they may not pull your toes down and back just right the way a stretch therapist does for a more effective stretch up the entire leg. I've now learned the CastleFlex is a patented device that pulls your toes into a complete dorsiflexion, allowing your entire leg to get stretched at the exact same time instead of just your calf or just your hamstring. And I can tell you from using it, I can feel the difference. It's an incredible stretch that makes my body, especially my back, feel a lot better. And I'm happy to say you can now even use funds from your HSA or FSA accounts that might be use it or lose it by the end of the year. So learn more at CastleFlex, flex with 2 X's, castleflex.com, and be sure to use our code NEWS12 for 10% off. Again, follow the link in our episode notes or use the code NEWS12, NEWS12 to get 10% off. Okay, now back to Feel Good Friday. A 12-year-old girl won a top prize for her invention that she hopes could one day replace smoke detectors and stop fires from happening in the first place. 7th grader Shania Gill felt she had to do something after a beloved neighborhood restaurant burnt to the ground, despite having smoke detectors. So she created a thermal imaging tool that alerts people via text message when a heat source like a gas burner is left unattended for 10 minutes. Her goal is to create a system that would be faster, better, and even more affordable than your average smoke detector. And it's already getting recognition. She came out on top among the 65,000 middle schoolers who entered a national science competition. The prize was $25,000, so now Shania says she plans to use the money toward her future education, and she wants to take the device to market. She says any profits would be donated to charities that help people affected by fires. All right, we'll be back tomorrow with our special edition Saturday episode. We're explaining why some well-known authors and artists are suing the companies behind artificial intelligence tools and what it could all mean for you and the future. And of course, we'll be back on Monday with your next news roundup. For now, thank you so much for listening and have a great weekend.